Hey everybody, Adam here. Today I'm with the one and only Gareth Morrissey. Could not find a better looking model.
This is true.
Because the rest of the gym's empty, but Gareth will do. Look, today's video I want to cover off on diaphragmatic breathing. In another video that you'll see shortly, I'm doing this 30-day yoga challenge trying to improve my flexibility. I'm feeling a bit stiff and sorry for myself. And a big part of that is around breathing, diaphragmatic breathing and how to breathe correctly. So sort of doing that this morning, then I came in to train a couple of the fighters, and one of them was getting a stitch in around the chest and shoulder area, and it sort of took me back to a conversation I had with a PT client of mine, probably 20 years ago now. She was an opera singer. She probably still is an opera singer, and she was telling me that I was breathing incorrectly, and I thought that was a little bit weird. But with a couple of tricks, she basically showed me in 2 or 3 steps how I could increase the amount of oxygen going into my body really quickly by breathing correctly. Now, this helps on a number of levels. Not only do we get to fill the lungs with more oxygen, this method of breathing is also the first step in how to teach somebody to turn their core on properly. And the deep breathing itself, it's kind of the same way as we'd meditate or breathe during yoga, which has an impact on what's called the vagus nerve, which controls our parasympathetic system, which helps reduce anxiety and things like that. So there's multiple benefits from being able to breathe properly, and it's crazy that you wouldn't know it, but you're probably breathing wrong. How I was tested from my client during our session, she just told me to sit down, put my hands on my thighs, bolt upright, and take as big a deep breath in as you can. Okay. And now if you're doing that along with us while you're watching the video, you can relax now. Big deep breath in, and what you'll see is the chest puffs out, the waist gets smaller, and the shoulders go up. Okay? Now, what that tells me, you can breathe out, okay, is that Gareth's breathing wrong. All right? Who would have thought after turning 40 next week, after 40 years breathing incorrectly? Now, we see this a lot, especially more now these days because we're sitting at the table all day and we're typing away. Basically what happens is our biggest breathing muscle that we've got, there are a whole bunch floating around the rib cages and things like that, but it's the diaphragm. It's this part that's underneath the rib cage. Now, what should happen is if we're breathing correctly, the diaphragm pulls down, squashes all of our internal organs down, and the lungs fill up from the bottom. But when we're not breathing correctly, this thing doesn't move, so this thing has to rise to do the job of the diaphragm. And for a lot of people, like the fighter that I was training this morning, that's where this stitch came from. So it was this up and down, up and down, up and down friction that caused the pain in the shoulder. So diaphragmatic breathing, we want to be able to pull the diaphragm down to essentially vacuum in all the air into the lungs. So, and how that works with setting up for, say, turning on the core is we fill up the belly with air, we draw in the belly button, and that locks in our core stability. Okay, so if you breathe incorrectly or not efficiently, there's a couple of exercises that I like to give people to teach them how to do it.
Hand under my head, like.
Sorry, on your back.
Oh.
So if we're having a lay down on our backs, first thing we want to do is bring the knees up. Okay. Now, if your legs are straight, the rectus, those six-pack muscles are going to be on a little bit too tight to do this. So feet up, you can, if you're at home laying down in bed, you can put a pillow underneath here. And what I want to do is Gareth put a hand over his belly button. Cool. And what we're trying to do here is as we breathe in, we want to fill the belly with air so the hand should rise. So big breath in and out. We're going to do that 4 or 5 times. And this is the meditative part of diaphragmatic breathing. This is no different to what you would do if you were meditating. The good thing about this is as we keep on breathing, is because we have a sole focus on what our hand is doing and our breath is doing, it's kind of good to just sort of chill out and cool down. If we go again. And all we're doing from here is trying to transfer this breathing into everyday life. And what we'll see is his lung capacity improved by 25 to 30% by using this methodology of breathing. So how do we use this in terms of turning on our core stability? For that one, we're going to stand up. So now we've got the diaphragmatic breathing happening. So how does this relate to lifting weight? So turning on our core is key to performing any major lifts. So if we got Gareth on his side facing me, we want to imagine he's got a bar on his back. And before we get him set to do anything, it's a big diaphragmatic breath in. That's it, fill that belly. Now without exhaling, we're going to pull the belly button into the spine. And what you'll feel from there, and now you can continue breathing, is a tightness that goes all the band right around his stomach, into his lower back, and even those Kegel muscles lifting up. So it's a bit like putting the lid on a Coke can. We've got the diaphragm being the top of the Coke can, the Kegels at the bottom, and this hard band of muscle around protecting our spine and doing our next lot of lifts. Thanks, Gareth. So in summary, if you want to increase the oxygen that you can take into your body for sport, if you want to learn how to relax, stimulate that vagus nerve and sort of have a plan to combat anxiety, if you want to lift stronger and higher weights, starts with your breathing.